All right.
Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML. And I am so happy to be back again. And, because we had so much fun yesterday. So today we're on book 91 and we will be talking about, I guess, something to do with cheese and some part of it. But I'll let Chris explain.
Yeah. So the book that we're going to be talking about today is a book called Cooked: A Natural History of Transformation by Michael Pollan. Which I think you guys are all familiar with Michael Pollan. I know Snow. I know you've mentioned you've read a few of his books in the past. True. I don't know if you've ever read any Michael Pollan books.
I have not. I heard of him, but I have not read his books.
Aren't you reading one right now, Snow? I think if I remember right.
Well, I finished reading his one about how to change the mind, about psychedelics.
Oh, I don't think I've read that one actually. So I'll have to check out. Was it good? You like it?
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. I think he's an awesome author. I mean, he's probably one of my favorite authors. Actually, this book in particular, the one we're going to talk about, is called Cooked. I would say it's probably in the top 10, 15 books that I've ever personally read on this journey thus far. Just from an overall experience standpoint, learning standpoint, a lot of new topics that were covered that I wasn't aware of. It was really cool. And it reignited my desire to want to cook these days. I haven't done a lot of it in the past couple of years, just given the fact that we've had two young children and a lot of obviously our life was back and forth in the hospital and COVID and yada yada yada. So we've taken to the approach of ordering those meal kits and stuff like that, that come pre-delivered, and they're really good, but they're they kind of just take food off of our plate at this point in time, and we can just eat in a hurry. But after reading this book, I'm rethinking my strategy. Because I'll get to the reflection here in a second, but either way, I really enjoyed this book. I would recommend it for anybody. Basically what Michael Pollan does is he goes through the four classical elements of fire, water, earth, and air, and how it can transform stuff of nature into delicious things that we eat and drink. Whether that be fermentations or cheese, or how water affects things, or how bread is cooked and yeast interacts with it. I mean, it was just a really cool book. I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. So on to the reflection. Let me share my screen. So what this particular book made me think about was the title of Patience plus Presence equals Transformation. And in particular, my family, I know I've talked to you guys about this before in the past, but I come from a pretty long line of cooks and chefs and restaurant owners and restaurateurs, I guess, if you will, in my family. My great grandparents started an Italian restaurant here in Indianapolis in the 1930s, and it's still in existence today. It's now fourth generation. My family runs it and operates it. It's pretty famous local institution here. As well as my other uncle, or one of my other uncles, he owns a little diner. Another one of my uncles started a catering food hall chain that was very successful and sold to a large grocery store chain. Anyway, long story short, food has always been in my family's blood. My mom's an amazing cook. She always spoiled the hell out of us with beautiful meals every night, that we would all sit down and gather around the table. And I didn't really ever know that I was eating so healthy and good and delicious food until I got into college, right? And you're eating that crap food at Delta Chi or whatever. Snow knows what I'm talking about.
Biscuits and gravy.
Whatever the slop was that they just would slap on your plate, or the dorm food, and McCutcheon, it's just garbage food. But I was telling True this at one point in time in my college career. I lived off campus my sophomore year, and every night I had to drive by this McDonald's, and I didn't want to cook, so I would get a double cheeseburger and a McChicken sandwich for $2, for $1 each, and that was my dinner. I swear to God, it was like that for I don't know, for 6 months straight. I ate a double cheeseburger and a McChicken, and I got home every single night. It's really gross. Anyway, I digress. I'm going back to the reflection. So as I was thinking about my family's heritage and reading this book and the concept of patience and presence equals transformation, it started to make me think about my great grandmother. We used to always after church every Sunday when I was a kid, she would host. It was this informal get together at their tiny little house in the Italian district in Indianapolis. She would put on a pot of spaghetti and sauce and meatballs and whatever. And after church, everybody would come over there. They would watch football. They'd eat. They'd catch up, have a good time, eat some chocolate, go hang out with the grandparents and great grandparents, and then we'd all leave when we wanted to. There was no pressure or anything. There was no event. There was no whatever. It was just come in, get some food, sit around, talk to your relatives, and go home. And I always had really fond memories of that. And after my great grandmother passed away, that was probably back in my early 20s. That tradition kind of went away with her. There was nobody that was doing that every weekend anymore. So like in 2019, I asked my mom, who's kind of now, I know my grandmother still is the matriarch of the family at this point in time, but my mom is, second in line in that matriarch, ship, I guess, if you will. And she's the oldest child of 7 children. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you want to bring back this tradition together? She loves to cook. And I was like, hey, I thought this was a great idea to bring the tradition back for our family. So she was like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. So she busted out my great grandmother's pot, the same pot that she used to use. She got it actually after my great grandmother passed away. So she busted out the big silver pot that was like, gigantic. And she spent all day. I'd never seen my great grandmother cook this meal before. Right. So she spent like all day long cooking the sauce, and making this delicious meal all through the night, and then invited everybody over after on an early Sunday morning, and all the family came over. We had a great time. It was awesome to get back together, and everybody, you could feel it. Everybody just missed it, right? Like everybody was like, "This is awesome." It's like it's not for some stupid birthday or like some event or Easter or whatever. It was just family getting together, stopping by, saying hi, and going back home. One of the things that kind of struck me the most is the process that my mom had to go through to make that sauce. I had no idea. I mean, it took like a full 24 hours to make that sauce. I always thought that my grandma would just like my great grandmother would just throw it together in like, I don't know, an hour after church or something like that. It would just no, like, I guess she's been just sitting over this awesome Sunday sauce that she'd been making all day, every day, for my entire life, and I was like, man, what a labor of love, and in the book he talks about, Michael Pollan, the author, talks about, cooking is really just a lot of patience and being present while you're cooking, making sure that you're stirring when it needs to be stirred, and spending that time. And then all of a sudden, like, a day later, you have this beautiful pot of Sunday sauce for your, the Irea's famous special sauce, that goes on their restaurant today. And just putting in that time and that patience and that love, and then the transformation that becomes this amazing dish. Snow, I know you're a cheesemaker, so all the patience and presence and time that you put into making a cheese, and then it transforms in this beautiful cheese at the end of the day. And it was just something that really kind of made me excited, and to think about like there's a lot of things that like in life, like in cooking, if you give anything the proper time and attention, it has the power to transform into something you could never have imagined, if you just step back and let nature do its thing. And I just thought that was a really cool thing that this made me think about, and the story I wanted to share, and that was a reflection. So yeah, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts.
Trio, what do you think?
So I have multiple different disparate thoughts. One of the thoughts that I've come up with is, I think there's a fifth element that Michael Pollan left out. Maybe that's a secret element, but the element of time is essential to bring all the 4 elements together to create that transformation.
Yeah.
Right. So I think time is I think it's one of those versatile elements that helps the 4 elements that he talks about, talking about fire, earth, air, and water, kind of activate it to make it transform, because without time, then none of these things would do any good. So I think, the reason why it comes to my mind is because you, in your reflection title, you say patience, right? Patience is one of those things where,
right,
to me, that's a big part of the ingredient of the the transformation. So patience plus presence. Like presence to me is like, like I said, I think the 4 elements can represent presence, and patience is just time itself. And having those combination would give you transformation that some of us will find it to be a miraculous. So that's one thought that comes to mind. The other thought is, for me, a lot of the memories that I've have is all involved the 3 F's, friends, families, and food.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that's the thing I remember. Even if the food was simple, I was able to remember vividly the food my mom made, and whether like I say, I don't was not privileged to grow up in a family with a lot of great cooks like you, but my family is a simple, but it also give me the good memories, and I think those memories make you who you are. And now that I've grown up, that I've becoming more interested in cooking, and I have 4 kids, and I cook for me, my wife, and my kids. So to me, the patience in the cooking itself, um to me, it's a reward in itself, because when you do it for somebody that is important to you, somebody that you love, the patience is just there. It just it's, I don't know, you don't have to like muster it up from somewhere deeply underneath your emotion and like once you have the why, like go back to our company core values, like if you know your why, right, the cooking to me is enjoyable. I love cooking, and I really can relate to what you said about making the sauce. It doesn't take like 10 minutes, it takes 24 hours, because you have to have time for that thing to transform.
Right.
And a lot of the good cooks, like for whatever reason, they knew how to prepare some of these things and stock it up and kind of whip it up whenever it's the occasion calls for it. And so, I mean, eventually it gets to the point where before I would take like whole day to prepare. And then at the end of the day, I found out I still couldn't make the meal. But now, because I cook more and more, a lot of the stuff I do, I just say, well, maybe I'll need this later on. So I would stock up on these things that is already marinated. And so I just need to take some of these, add some of that. And so even on short notice, I can probably whip up something that you would normally think it would take you 2 days to make.
Right.
Like, for example, like you want to make a beef noodle, right? Beef noodle, it takes you 24 hours, right? Because you got to marinate and you got to simmer all those
Right.
bone broth and all that. Right. So I do some of that. And so I say, well, this is good to stock. So you kind of knew more and more, and you stock them. And then whenever somebody say, hey, I'm craving for beef noodle, you would say whip it out. You add some things that doesn't need as much time to prep, but the broth you already have. And so you just add a few things to it, and then you're good to go. So I think like that. I can really relate to making the sauce. Because making the sauce is actually the to me the most time consuming and the most artful.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it truly is an art. Like, because I mean, it doesn't require
I think
a lot of
sauce
work.
makes the meal.
Right. Oh, for sure. I mean, the sauce is the meal. I mean, like, who cares about pasta? I mean, like, it's just a
Because
noodle.
the chicken is just very bland, right? But if you
Yeah.
have the right sauce and the right rub, it's just gonna make that thing the whole meal, whatever you want it to taste like. It's you tasting the art of prepping the essence of the, I guess, I don't know, you call it accessory, but it's not.
No, I mean, it's just putting the time in, like we said, like when I think of like the transformation side of everything too, it's not just the food transforming into this beautiful dish. Like one of the analogies I guess I was trying to get across is like, I feel like when you took away the food from my family, the family kind of transformed into a different family. Like you bring the food back and all of a sudden your family transforms back into a family again. It's like,
right.
It's like there's a reason. The food gave us all a reason just to come out and come together and to be together. And I know like it sounds stupid, but like it's not. Like, I mean, like you said, like food,
Right, but because
is important.
if you do anything, you have the number of ingredients, right? It's gonna turn out completely different based on the ingredient you have, right? So
Right.
if you have the friends and the family, but not the food, right? The experience and the memory is gonna be different. But if the food were added in it, it's gonna create a whole new set of memories and a whole new set of different. It's just different because there's different ingredient combinations in that hodgepodge of whatever culture that you want to
Right.
stuff is in. But that's the thing is, for us, for me, I think we as a human species are, very in tune to having the communications and the trading of ideas, and just like, for example, we sit around the campfire and we tell stories, right? That's how we pass on all of the history and the ideas from our grandparents to our parents to us, and so forth and so on. And even nowadays, right, a lot of the business, like the business connections you make really make, like, you go to dinner, right?
Yeah.
So for a business lunch, right, you have somebody, hey, yeah, you kind of trust, but for a business dinner, it's like, okay, I really trust that guy, I gotta
Yeah.
go dinner with him, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of the ideas, I mean, a lot of the, to me, a lot of the partnerships and a lot of the connections that in the relationship that people make is through dinner, is through the food, and food has been with us for so long that it become a part of who we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's how we connect. And Snow, I want to get you in because you're the only real, professional food food creator
Yeah,
in this group. So
your
love
opinion
to
is
get
the
your
only one that
idea.
matters.
Yeah.
No. I was just, oh gosh. Well, I think that, I don't know, Susan, I like the story about how you're talking about how the food brought your family together, and you almost didn't. Once it was gone, you kind of realized, oh man, how nice that was. Your grandma doing that, and I think it's obviously like they say it's a really like primal thing. Us like us eating together. It's easy to make relationships when you're doing something like that, because maybe everyone's just like satiating themselves and kind of relaxed, and it's almost in a way in a form of like having drinks too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everyone coming over and having some beers or whatever is also a way people bond. And obviously food is really important to our culture and our species to keep going. And but I like Trio, you're talking about the time, and like how you can make beef noodle. It seemed like, oh man, this must have taken you like 2 days, but like nah man, 3 hours. I picked up the marinated chicken there, the this and that. And I think that the thing is and Trio, you talked about it, how time is a large thing when it comes to cooking, and it takes a lot of time, and that's why a lot of people and a lot of businesses, like, do you guys have Wegmans where you are?
I know of them.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean Wegmans, but also other grocery stores do them too. You're like, they'll already have like the chopped up vegetables that you can just buy. You know what I mean? Or like say like the marinated chicken that you can buy, and it's almost like you can pretty much just like buy things and then just like heat them up at home. And I think that's where I don't know if say like people struggle, but like where some conventions are lost almost in sort of the art form of cooking for your family, because people are just like more stretched for time these days. And I think it's sort of is a little bit of a lost art, let's say, because it's kind of like woodworking. Like you put your love and you put your attention to it, and it's meditative because you're
Right.
focusing on stirring something. You're focused. And one thing I think is more and more when it comes to meditation and peace and ease and actually like contentness and having good days is focusing on something for an extended amount of time. And they did like a little research thing about people who are like constantly switching tasks like end up having not as fulfilling days as people who like focus on one thing for a longer amount of
Right.
time. And I don't necessarily know why that is, but I think it can make sense.
Because you can't get into a flow state at all. Like you can't enjoy. I mean, like when you're constantly going from task to task to task, there's no, you can never turn it into any kind of an art, right? Like I mean, like beef, cheese, you make cheese. Like I mean, like
it takes
doesn't
time.
it doesn't it's not, I mean, I can't imagine the process of making cheese is that hard, but it takes a long time and takes a lot of effort and probably takes a lot of presence and checking in and being there. And I don't even know how do you make cheese? I mean, he talked a little bit about it in his book. I remember actually telling you, right. I remember I actually talked to you about this book right after I read it because Luca was spitting up
That's right.
like when babies spit up and the little curdling that happens. I forget what's the enzyme that you put
The
in
rennet.
rennet. Yeah, that's it. He's
I
talking about that in
remember
his book. And I was like, oh shit, like that's why babies, puke looks like curdled, because they have rennet in them or rennet in them or whatever.
No,
it's
but
called.
I mean, like babies don't or whatever. Well, that's like an acid coagulation in
No, they haven't.
babies.
Babies naturally have that when they're born because it makes it easier for them to process the cheese or to process the milk.
Human babies do not have rennet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. I thought they didn't, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, so that's how milk turns into cheese immediately, and then when they spew up, it like it looks all curdled and stuff because
Yeah, but milk can also turn into cheese through an acid coagulation and not necessarily that rennet though. So
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but like that was what I'm pretty sure that was what he talked about in this book, but it's irrelevant either way.
Yeah,
like, but the point is like I don't even know what the process of cheese making really is, but like I'd love to know. I'd love to learn. I mean, I'd love to.
Well,
learn
you guys will come out for a trip one summer or whatever.
Yeah.
And so let me get back to my reflection here about this book, or and Chris, I think it's really cool because you do give a nice like reflection about the book, and it kind of like just stimulates thoughts about like what goes on in our society and why this book is interesting. I mean, like, would this book have been interesting like 100 years ago when it was like obvious, like
Right.
like people did this stuff, but there's definitely a disconnect because I mean people are definitely this like, and I don't know if through our dopamine or certain people are definitely quick to take on more responsibilities than they want to, or than they think then they realize they can handle, but they keep trying to keep up with that, and so they're burnt out for time, so they find shortcuts, and kind of lost arts of, let's say, like cooking or whatever fall by the wayside because whether your kid's got to go to soccer practice or Tommy's got to go here or other things that come in a way of taking all that time to cook a meal.
Yeah, those tasks that you're checking off the list are just tasks you're checking off the list and never have an ability to ever transform into something else because it's just quick repetition of tasks, management at that point in time. There's no end game. There's no compound effect that happens when you're just checking off task after task after task. You have to spend time with it and figure out, like I said, create that meaningful work environment and.
But for some people, just like getting dinner served is a checkbox, though. You know what I mean? Like,
and that sucks.
Whether you're picking up KFC or or you're cooking pasta or something. Like, I mean, sometimes it's still like a check mark. Like, all right, kids are fed, sweet. All right, let's wind down, let's go to bed.
100%. That's what Felicia and I have done these days, and it sucks because like she used to cook amazing meals too, and like I miss them. Like I miss us sitting down and eating her meal together or whatever. Now these days we pop one of our pre-made very healthy macronutrient whatever like trifecta meal or whatever we get and throw it in the microwave and go sit down and eat. Actually, he talked about it in this book. He people think they save time by like microwave meals or whatever. He tried this experiment with his kids of like cooking them all an individualized pre-made meal or something along those lines, and he was like, it actually took me just as long to cook like all these different pre-made meals and put them in the microwave and or in the heat them up in the oven or whatever it may be. And then when they all sat down and ate at the dinner table, there was just a disconnect because they weren't eating the same thing. Like they weren't experiencing the same experience together. And it was like, it was just weird. It was like, one of them's eating macaroni and cheese, the next one's eating this, the next one's eating that. And you're like, there's nothing to connect on with it, to like go, oh man, this sauce is amazing, mom. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it is weird. It's like, it is a lost art. He actually talked about it in this book too. We obviously have this like love of cooking, like from the first time in like human history, more people probably watch cooking on TV than do it in their home. I mean, like you think about all the shows on Netflix of like Christmas Bake Off and whatever, and you're like, oh man, I want to learn how to make that awesome thing, but you never do. You just like to watch people cook, like because it's just cool to watch things transform.
I think cooking is primal, right? We are used to cooking for so long that it feels like we're in the right place. We're in the where we're supposed to be. And I don't know about other people, but for me, when I cook, right, I'm not I feel relaxed. I feel very calm. Same thing with gardening, right? So I think these things is what we do for species as a long time. So when I'm doing it, it feels familiar. It feels like, okay, I'm supposed to be where I'm at. And so it's almost like taking a break from the stress of the hectic and chaotic modern world that we live in. So for me, when I start cooking, right, I tend to forget about everything else. It's like I'm probably, to be honest, it's like I I'm probably most in the zone when I'm in the flow state when I'm cooking, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
That means like for whatever hours that I'm cooking, it's like that's all I do. I mean, I don't think about anything else. I just couldn't add another piece of information into my mind at that point. And so, but when I'm cooking, like especially when I'm cooking for the people that I'm not cooking for a restaurant. I'm not cooking as a job, right? I'm cooking for the people that I say, hey, for me, it's like if I cook, like if my kids say, hey, this is good or whatever, that's what I'm looking. That's the kind of repayment I'm looking for. So when I'm cooking with that in mind, I'm mostly in the zone. I'm really relaxed. I'm really feel at peace with myself when I do that. So if I'm really stressed out with this or that, and I just go cook or I go gardening, because like I said, I like plants and we like nature. And I think most people, I can't say everybody, but I think most people would love to cook because I think that's primal. People love nature just because that's primal. I haven't seen anyone say, hey, I hated nature.
Right.
I mean, yes, I know there are exceptions, but I think the majority of the people would love nature because that's where we came from, and majority of people would love to cook or love to watch people cook.
Right. I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, I've asked you like 3 times now, like, how does this relate to cheese making?
Well, I mean, I mean, cheese's milks jump into immortality, they say.
I love that.
Do tell.
And so, I mean, cheese making is a really simple process. Like it already happens like inside a calf's stomach, right? Because there's that enzyme called rennet, which ends up like snipping the proteins, these long strands of proteins, and it ends up forming a web. And in that web or whatever, think of like a fisher's net, like collecting all the fish in the sea. Think of all the fish, like the fats and the minerals. Then you end up like kind of wrapping this net around, and more moisture leaves, and so you end up with all these solid balls of cheese in your cheese vat, and then you collect all those or whatever, and then then you have cheese right there. So
it's like curling, right? It's like curling. You're extracting the good stuff.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
And then you decant like the water, the moisture, and all the things you want.
A cow does the same thing when they end up. A calf does the same thing because it makes cheese in its stomach, and the cheese sits there, and it's able to absorb all the nutrients and fats and proteins and minerals slowly. Whereas like the water part just ends up flowing through. So, but it's obviously like a cow. It wouldn't make almost like evolutionary sense. It's not gonna like squirt out turds, or like chunks of cheese. It's like the same thing with like a mom, right? She doesn't like squirt out like chunks.
Right.
Of shit. It's like it's in a liquid form. It's just like 90% water, and then so I mean that's why there's obviously a debate among vegans. Like cheese is disgusting. Are you kidding? You're just eating like a cow's breast milk. Like that's disgusting. Like you got weaned off your mom when you were a year old, and so some people say that's the reason why cheese is such a comfort food, because it gets us back to our primal instinct when we were like nursing from our mothers. So, and they might be right. Cheese does sort of like have this I don't know, this nurturing. Oh wow, that just feels really good. So maybe it is because we were suckling on our moms, and the cow's milk and a woman's milk is pretty similar.
Yeah. Regardless of what the reason is, I love cheese.
I agree. I mean, I don't know how you can't like. I mean, like.
Well, what's that like? It's salty. It's fatty. It's got protein. Like it's
delicious.
It's tasty.
Yeah, it's just good. Yeah, it goes with everything. I mean, I don't know that there's anything that cheese doesn't go with. I can't even think.
I think cheese and chocolate don't really go good.
Oh, I don't know. I could probably find it. I could probably find a reason to do that. Yeah, you could. Yeah, I could see it on a charcuterie board.
Well, I thought about maybe doing a grilled cheese with a Nutella spread actually.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Yeah,
I should try it. Yeah.
You know how it goes.
I mean, it sounds like an awesome process though. I mean, like how much time do you have to spend with it? After you make the initial cheese batch or whatever, like how much time do you have to dedicate to like nurturing the cheese until
Nurturing.
it's able to eat?
Well, I mean, you can spend a lot of time. Like you really do have to, like, after you make the fresh cheese, you have to put it in a salt solution. Usually for a day or a couple hours, depending on the size of it. The larger the cheese, the more time it's got to sit in that salt solution, because you're aiming for like a salt content of around maybe 1 to 2%. But after you take it out, you just let it dry there. But like after a week or maybe two weeks, it'll start getting mold on it. So you got to wipe the mold off, because you can't have it in a dry environment. But what we've started doing, though, is to make it easier. And this is what I think about 99% of cheese companies do now, is they vacuum seal the cheese, though, so that it just ages in like a plastic bag, so you don't have like mold growing around the outside, and then you just have to flip it, make maybe once a week as it ages. So
does that impact it? Like, I mean, it sounds like probably the natural way is to have it mold grow on it and just knock it off.
The natural way is like kind of that natural rind ends up forming, but then, that's just like just a barrier layer, kind of like the plastic. But you get less loss, though, because sometimes people don't like the rind, let's say, and so you get less loss. Vacuum sealing it, you want the outside to dry a little bit before you vacuum seal it, but we get these breathable bags that let the cheese breathe a little bit, and we feel like that's better. So yeah.
When you eat your cheese with somebody else and you bring it to like a dinner party or something like that, like, I don't know, what does that feel like for you? Like to know.
It's honestly, it's like embarrassing.
Really?
In a way. Yeah, because I just don't like I don't like the attention about it. Like, it's not like I was like, destined and wanted to be some cheesemaker. It just sort of like, kind of fell into it with my dad here, and it is pretty cool and stuff. But I just don't like the attention of it, I guess.
Interesting.
I think it's really good. I think our cheese is delicious. Like yesterday, I went over to a friend's house for dinner, and I'm like, here's some cheese. Eat it when I'm not here.
Interesting. I feel like I'd be really proud of, like, going like, this is something that I'm,
Yeah.
I put the time to transform it. from milk from a cow into
I mean, maybe when I was like more like the head cheesemaker, but like, it's like more I do like the sales, I do the bookkeeping, I help out with the infrastructure at the creamery, and I help my dad make it, but like he's the one who's actually there Friday morning, like making it while I'm at school.
Gotcha. Well, very cool. Either way, it's a unique experience, and yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. So very cool. Any final thoughts, or anybody have any final thoughts on this book? I guess just in general reflections, answer to the question, is there area of your life you're seeking transformation, you can use a little bit more time and
so
attention?
I think transformation, whether that's with food or with us as a human being, as a person, you need both time and presence. So I think a great reflection title, I think having those two, try to see if you can add those two ingredients into your life if you want a transformation.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Like Snow's saying, like, making cheese is not that hard. I know he said he broke down a lot of things that a lot of people wouldn't know, but like I'm sure the day-to-day getting in the weeds of making cheese is really not that complex necessarily, but
right.
In totality, it takes somebody to nurture it along and to do all that other stuff. Or making my great grandmother's sauce isn't that complex. It takes time.
The biggest ingredient is time, right? So you need to be present. Like, let's say you want to transform yourself, right? And go back to what we say about the compound effect, right? If you say, hey, I want to be more knowledgeable, I want to be more well-rounded, right? Pick up a book and read 30 minutes a day, right? It's just 30 minutes. It's not that complex. It's simple, but it takes time for you to start to slowly gaining that particular compound interest into the breadth of knowledge that you wanted or desire.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, and it requires your attention though too. I mean, that in that 30 minutes you should be
right.
focused,
You can't just
doing,
listen.
Right?
You can just to listen, but
Right.
not even get another word into your head and process it. And so present, you need 30 minutes of presence a day if you want to be knowledgeable, and time, right? And so presence and time will give you a transformation that goes with everything. I mean, it basically boils down to the more breakdown concept of the compound effect.
Yeah, what are you willing to give your time to, you know, and your attention to, right? Like, and that's like whatever you do, that'll lead to something really cool that you probably never even imagined, you know. Like like you said, Snow, who the hell would have ever thought like turning milk into cheese someday would be a thing? I mean, like that, you know, like I'm baffled by the first person that ever figured out that process. That's now that, you know, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how the hell did somebody learn how to do that? Slash, you know, how the hell did somebody learn how to take a tomato and turn it into some, you know, amazing, you know, beautiful sauce, you know, or whatever.
I think it's all by
you know?
accident, right? We forgot, and then it it turned to cheese, and you say, well, you know, can we still eat it? Okay, let me try it. Oh,
Well,
actually, it's pretty good.
I assume it kind of happened from somebody like just slaughtering a calf, because I mean, you needed meat, right? And so someone slaughtered a calf and cut open the stomach and was like, what the heck is this stuff here? And probably tried it, and it probably didn't taste bad. And, you know, I don't know, one thing led to another, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but how'd they learn how to make it themselves? How did they learn how to find that, you know, I mean, like,
Well,
passion.
I mean,
yeah.
If something tastes really good and you say, hey, I crave that taste again, and this is what I found before, right? Let's see if I can observe it again. Like, I did this, okay, let's see. So by trial and error and enough time, back to patience again, enough time, you're gonna find the right configurations, or, you know, levers or combinations or ingredient, whatever you want to call it, the right combination to get you these results that you wanted.
I want to wrap this up with a meta, you know, thought about, you know, what we're doing here. You know, we give an hour a day, or I mean, I guess more, but I mean, let's just say we give an hour a day to the idea of clubbing, you know, in the presence of talking about these conversations, and slowly but surely building on itself. You know, two years ago, when the first clubbing word was entered into our mind of what we wanted this to become, like, you know, we had an idea, but we didn't really necessarily know what it was going to become, right? Like, slowly but surely over time, we're starting to see that transformation. That's, you know, things are becoming tangible, understanding what we want to do here, you know, and understanding like stuff like this that we're doing every single night. So like, it doesn't take a lot. Like, I don't think if anybody ever asked us, like, what did you do? You know, who knows where this will take us, but if anybody ever, you know, we were on a how I built this podcast or something like that someday, like, I mean, I would say the same thing that Snow said. We didn't do anything. All we did was talk about the stuff that we care about, and like, you know, and like, it wasn't that big of a deal, right? But slowly but surely dedicating your time to that, you start to see whatever, you know, magic starts to take place, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So cooking is an amazing process. This is an amazing process. So go find those things you can give your time and attention to, and watch the transformation happen over time. It'll be fun. Thank you guys both for joining. That was always a fun conversation, as always.
We'll see you next time. Good night.